All right, we are here on the deck of the USS Lexington in Corpus Christi, Texas, and it is my honor to be here. This is Riley Davison, and you are listening to Bravo Zulu Radio. Sir, thank you.
Okay. My name's Ken Kolstad. I'm a volunteer on the USS Lexington Museum, and I've been doing this for about 19 years. And basically, I've been asked to give the history of the Lexington. Now, the Lexington is the second Essex-class carrier to be commissioned. The Essex-class carrier was the most numerous class of heavy attack carrier that we used during the Second World War. Their plan for the carrier was first formalized in 1939, and the lead ship, the USS Essex, was commissioned on the last day of 1942. And basically, Essex and her sisters, of whom, of course, Lexington is one, were the most numerous class of attack carrier that we used during the Second World War. There were 19 of them that saw combat, of the total of 24 that were commissioned. They were tough, rugged ships, and they were top-of-the-line technology for their time. Now, Lexington herself, CV-16, was commissioned on February 17, 1943, as the second Essex-class carrier to be put into service. Obviously, she missed the early battles of the war. She was not around for Coral Sea, which was in May 8th of 1942. That was the original Lexington, CV-2. CV-2 was the second aircraft carrier ever built by the United States. But unfortunately, she was sunk at the Battle of the Coral Sea. Our ship was being built at that time in the Fore River Shipyard in Quincy, Massachusetts, which happens to be the exact same yard that the CV-2 was built. And so many of the workmen working on our ship had also worked on the CV-2, and when they learned that she had been sunk, they sent a telegram to the Secretary of Navy asking if our ship could be named Lexington in honor of the CV-2, and that is how our ship got her name. Again, we missed the early battles of the war. Our first major engagement was on the occasion of the invasion of Tarawa, or some people call it Tarawa, in the Gilbert Islands. That was in the late fall of 1943, and we also participated in a raid against Wake Island and then a raid against Kwajalein. And it was in the raid against Kwajalein that the Lexington was struck by a torpedo and had to go back to Bremerton, Washington to be repaired. She also got several upgrades at that time. And one of the interesting notes is that she was given the first height finder radar set that was used in the Pacific. So at the time that she went back to her battle station, she was the only ship in the Pacific that had a height finding radar. I think probably her most interesting and most important mission was in June of 1944 on the occasion of the invasion of Saipan in the Mariana Islands. By this time in the war, the Japanese warlords had realized they were going to either have to stop the advance of the Americans or they were going to lose the war, and they sortied their entire carrier force to oppose this invasion. They were, however, detected at 2 points. Their carriers were stationed down in Borneo because they were having a great deal of difficulty getting fuel oil due to the American submarine campaign. And so when the Japanese learned that Saipan was being invaded, the carriers left Borneo, sailed up the west side of the Pacific Islands, through the Pacific Island chain, and out the San Bernardino Strait. You may have heard of that name. That became very famous about 4 months later during the Battle of Leyte Gulf. But at the Battle of the Philippine Sea, they sailed east toward Saipan, and we had placed Task Force 58, including the Lexington, west of Saipan to protect the invasion forces from the oncoming Japanese. And this resulted in the Battle of the Philippine Sea. It's not well known to the public, but it was the largest aircraft carrier battle of the war because we had 15 aircraft carriers present and the Japanese had 9. At the time of the battle, we were flagship for Admiral Mitcher, who was the commander of Task Force 58. Now, he's a very famous admiral. Some people say that he is, or some historians say that he was the father of modern aircraft carrier tactics. But whether that's true or not, we're very proud that we were flagship for Admiral Mitcher during this battle.
So now you You actually served in the Navy, as you were telling me.
I served in the Navy for 10 years, but not on this ship. My first ship was a radar picket ship. This was before the time of the ballistic missile, and we were stationed. There were a chain of picket ships stationed on the East Coast and also on the West Coast to look out for Russian bombers coming in over the coast.
Picket meaning like a scout.
Exactly so. Yeah.
All right, and so they were set in charge to find out what.
Right. We were stationed down the coast. There were about 5 ships on each side in geographical locations about 300 miles out from the coast, and just rotating our radars, acting as a radar screen.
So, and you knew that right away. You knew Bravo Zulu meant a job well done.
Well, that's Navy.
That's right.
So,
considering the Lexington and
Yeah.
its place in history, its place in the war, what do you think? What do you think was the significance of the fact that this ship was sent to sea at the time it was, and how did it really play into the final battles at sea?
Well, as I told you, we were participants in the Battle of the Philippine Sea. We were actually a flagship for that battle.
Right.
This was a very significant battle because it marked the end of the Japanese carrier force as a significant weapon. It's also known colloquially as the Marianas Turkey Shoot,
Right.
because the Japanese launched some 370 aircraft against Task Force 58, including the Lexington, and in the same day 240 of those 370 were shot down.
Who was it that actually named it the Turkey Shoot?
Well, that's a very interesting thing. There was a pilot landing, a fighter pilot, a defending American pilot, landing to be resupplied, and he just happened to mention it's like an old-time turkey shoot up there. His squadron commander overheard the remark and passed it on, and next thing we know, it goes into the history books as the Marianas Turkey Shoot. And just as an interesting aside, that pilot happened to be from the Lexington.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so what's incredible to me, and I know that we have a school group coming through here lately, or here in a little bit,
Right.
which is awesome, because I think that, as I was telling them when we set up these interviews, is that the kids today, and even the culture, period, end of conversation, needs to understand that the freedoms that we take so casually
Right.
today were purchased at a high price, and it was some of the men that served on this ship.
Well, the significant thing is that if it had not been for the Lexington and her sisters, the Essex class carriers, we'd all be speaking Japanese today. So it was a very significant factor in the Second World War. The interesting thing is that when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, there just by good fortune did not happen to be any American carriers in the port at Pearl Harbor at the time of the attack. And, of course, they sank all of our battleships. But as it turned out, it was the carrier that took the battle to the enemy.
Well, it changed the face of war. As it had been
Very much so. Yeah.
Right. So, and what is incredible to me also is the fact that, like you said, right after Pearl Harbor was attacked, and then 6 months later we had the Battle of Midway, but instead of us concentrating on what would have been our main enemy, which would have been the Japanese, instead we turned and we focused on the Germans at that time.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right.
This was one of the problems of the battle in the Pacific, is that we had a great deal of difficulty early in the war getting adequate supplies.
Right.
Simply because we were getting only about 20% of the war effort.
Right. Well, so much was being done in order
Right.
to help the English, so that the English
Exactly.
could prevail, and to be able to defeat Hitler. And then once that was done, and Mussolini as well, and once that was done, then we were able to turn our full force and attention to the
Yes, that is
Japanese
correct.
end of the war.
By the time of the Battle of the Philippine Sea, we had more ships of every class than the Japanese.
And they started it. They brought us in.
They did.
But so, such a significant place, and really more and more attention needs to be brought to these kinds of. This is in essence a floating
Yeah.
museum.
It
And
is.
It's the real thing for people to have the opportunity to come out and see, where it all took
Yeah.
place and from where it was launched.
Yeah, well, this is the real ship. Now, there is a confusion in some of the public. They think that This is a model of the ship or a reconstruction or something of that sort. And no, it isn't. It's the actual warship.
The cost to try and duplicate this would be so immense. I doubt seriously that.
Well,
There are some that still don't believe we landed on the moon either.
Yeah,
that was
no,
done in the
that's-
warehouse. So.
This ship cost the American public $62 million.
At
That's
the
in
time.
1943 dollars.
Right. And in today's dollars,
I wouldn't be able to. It'd be 10 times that amount, roughly.
I imagine. That's
But
incredible.
there's another interesting thing. This is one of the longest serving carriers of the United States Navy, and she was decommissioned in 1991, brought here to Corpus Christi, and opened as a museum. And the interesting thing is, in the some 29 years she's been here in Corpus Christi, very roughly, approximately, the museum has spent, in terms of actual invoices, around $100 million to maintain and operate the museum.
Oh, I can imagine.
And almost all of that money has gone into the local economy. And currently, the museum is spending about $5 million a year to operate and maintain the museum. And so if you consider that people coming to visit the Lexington from outside our local economy also contribute money by buying gasoline, food, lodging, and alternative entertainment, the value of Lexington to the Corpus Christi economy is roughly $6 million a year. So I think that's a good repayment for the $62 million that we had to pay.
Absolutely. So, and then let me ask you this: what percentage of the Texas population do you think? I mean, maybe it's a number you haven't considered before, but what percentage of the Texas population is actually visiting?
Well, I really wouldn't be able to answer that question. I have no idea what the size of the Texas population is, but what I can say is
Not enough.
Well, no, it's not enough. We're averaging around 2,500 visitors a day on a good day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And especially as we were talking about earlier, with the lockdown and everything that
Right.
transpired during 2020, I mean, really, it's needed. I mean,
Yeah.
this is a good place for people to come. It's a beautiful day out there. You can listen to the waves break and the wind come in. And what would this level be that we're on now?
The level that we're on now is the hangar deck.
Okay.
It's also the main deck of the ship. It's a 2 1/4 inch steel deck, and it's basically a strength member of the ship.
Okay. But these, like I know that one of the troubles that the Japanese had during Midway was they had to raise and lower the ships between the decks. Do any of these roofs open up so the ship?
Oh, you're asking about elevators?
Right.
Yes, during the war we had 3 elevators. A forward elevator is currently now our movie theater, or the shaft of the elevator is a movie theater, but it's there, but it's locked in up position.
Right.
The Essex class carrier was the first carrier that was designed with an edge deck elevator, and if you look at the opening right over there, that's where the edge deck elevator was located, but after the war that was redesigned and the elevator was put out of commission, and that obviously that area is not large enough to bring an airplane in, but it was before
So
it was
in other words-
redesigned.
So in other words, it was actually an elevator just outside the ship itself?
Yes, sir. And then a third elevator, which during the Second World War was a centerline elevator, but in 1953 it was moved to an edge deck elevator, and that's what people come across when they come to visit the museum. Now it is fully operational. So if we have, and as you may know, we have lots of aircraft on the flight deck. If we have a bad storm or something like that, we can take those aircraft to the elevator, lower them down, and leave them in the hangar deck here where they're
So
protected.
do they all have to fold their wings in order to do that?
Some of them do not have folding wings,
That's what I
but
thought,
most of them do, and the ones that have folding wings, we definitely do that.
Well, this is a live museum, and so
Right.
there are people coming through, and it's good to see the children enjoying themselves.
Yeah.
And so, Ken, I just really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, it's my
to speak with
pleasure.
Me and my listeners, and we just wish you all the best.
Well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir,
I'm
my
happy to be here.
Thank you.
I want to.
All right, we're back. This is Riley Davison with Bravo Zulu Radio, and I have Art. And go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, Art, and how long you've been here.
I've been a volunteer for about 8 years now. I retired from the right across the bay with the Chief of Naval Air Training.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I was the undergraduate flight training resources guy, to making sure they got enough stuff to do the training that they needed
You're
to
the guy
do.
with the whip in one hand and then the rod in the other.
Yeah, well, actually, I felt like I was on the wrong end of the whip there, but that's okay. Because it was a pretty tough job, but it's challenging, but I really enjoyed it. I really did. Best place to work in the world was Chief of Naval Air Training.
Well, Bravo Zulu stands for job well done.
Right.
And so that's one of the reasons why I was so excited to have this opportunity to come out here and interview you guys and just really give the citizens of San Antonio and Texas a taste of what it's like to be here at the Lexington. What a beautiful place and a beautiful day it is here.
Absolutely. Really nice today.
Yeah, it is.
The nice breeze coming through here.
So tell me a little bit about what you do and what the significance you feel like the Lexington brings to the citizens of Texas.
Well, what I do is I man the library. It's a research library. It's not like the original library, which would have been down below the hangar deck. Okay, and it's not conducive to any of the tour routes now. So they established the research library up on the O1 deck, and it's they used to be, I think, operational admin spaces. And we have a lot of reference books, cruise books up there. The Lexington did cruises back in the late 50s and early 60s in the Western Pacific and the Far East. And there's also a logbook up there that has the names of the guys who served aboard the Lexington between 1943 and 1946. It's pretty cool, yeah. And the significance is to show what the Lexington done. I mean, Lexington's got a huge history. I mean, from 1943, I know it was decommissioned for a little while, brought back in 1945, and then from that point on up to 1991.
Right.
It's pretty significant.
Seen a lot of work.
A lot of work. A significant player in the Naval Air Training. That was my nexus with the Lexington. I was working for the Chief of Naval Air Training at the time. In 1991, it kind of blew a gasket, I think, and then anyway, it was decommissioned shortly after that.
So not only did you have sailors rotate through here, but you also had pilots as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Right. So it's one of my pet peeves, because working with on the staff with the pilots, I have a personal collection of a lot of aviators that went to undergraduate flight training from all the way from 1936 up until they quit actually publishing them in about 1973, and they dumped that on a few years too. But I got them I think all in total there's probably I don't know, about 50,000 pictures of the grads. Yeah, it's no kidding. And I have a goal to try to put together a database of those guys, and trying to make it where it's searchable. And if I can, get a handle on it, I'd like to get make that available for somebody who has a relative that went through any one of those years, and make a searchable database. And I'm not sure how far I'm getting there, but it's pretty tough.
It seems like a daunting task, I would imagine.
Yeah.
There's money available through the Texas State Historical Association, I would imagine, or I'm sure that there are places that you could tap in order to get help with that.
The National Library, of course, but I think actually I looked at the books that they list in the U.S. Navy History Library, Historical Library. I think I got more books than they do. I really do.
Right? No
Yeah.
kidding. Well, they'd be interested, I'm sure, in
possibly
being able to access the database.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a co-op there in your future.
I'm going to try to work something out there.
That's
Absolutely.
Awesome. I can give you the Lisa Berg is my contact with them.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right, fantastic. So what do you think is the greatest takeaway that somebody coming here, seeing everything that the Lex has to offer in terms of a museum type quality? What's the biggest takeaway for you to bring?
I'm at the end of the third tour route, so by the time that I see the folks and kind of get a feel for what they think, because I always ask them, what they think, and they're just overwhelmed. They really are. It's like you really have to come back 2 or 3 or 4 times before then when you do that, there's always something new that this, like the women in the Navy is coming up as a whole new exhibit, and there's plans to do.
And also the Texas Navy.
The Texas Navy is down there is down there as well. It's just crazy.
Significant part that I didn't even actually realize to the full extent until.
Absolutely, yeah.
I know when the last time we were here with my family, and my wife would say, "Let's go." I mean, I just wouldn't stop. I just kept going to different places.
Yeah.
I wanted to see the whole ship. I wasn't sure.
It's kind of hard. Now, climbing up and down the ladders and stuff like that. you hear that too as well.
Even just coming up the ramp.
Exactly, just coming up the ramp. That's right. Of course, we do have the shuttle. Volunteers run the shuttle, and that's a good thing. Yeah.
I saw him in the parking lot, but I made it up before he did.
All
right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and we appreciate from the standpoint of the state of Texas and obviously Corpus Christi and me being from San Antonio, we appreciate all that you do.
If I had one thing to leave on like a final note is anybody who's been here, I don't care if if it's been just a year or, well, yeah, I was just there a year ago. I tell you, there's something new just about every time you look around. And for the people that are here in the Corpus Christi area or in the South Texas area that came, well, yeah, when it first opened up or 10 years ago, or just it's totally revamped, if you will.
And for Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, there's sleepovers.
Yes, exactly.
There's the beat the room, the beat the blast, and to the escape room.
Yeah, the escape room. Yeah. And of course, during Halloween they have the haunting, which is pretty cool too.
All kinds of things.
You bet.
So folks, come on out. Right.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks.
You bet.
Appreciate it very much.
You bet.
This is Riley Davison with Bravo Zulu Radio, and I have the opportunity of a lifetime to interview Robert Batherson. He is a Pearl Harbor survivor. Sir, thank you so much for being here.
It's an honor to be here with you.
So, tell me a little bit about, I just got a brief history of, what you've been through and the service that you gave our country. Tell us a little bit more.
Well, I was at Pearl Harbor when the attack occurred. I was a enlisted man in a enlisted barracks. Got involved in firefighting with the Castle Downs. In the dry dock with the battleship Pennsylvania, and fought fires during the attack, and the Japs were attacking the Pennsylvania because the battleships were the primary target, the battleships and carriers. But about an hour or so, it ended, and the strike commander made a major mistake. He canceled out a third strike, which if they had sent that in, they would have taken out Pearl Harbor as a logistic support activity for months and months. He made a serious mistake, which I think helped us win the war. But then when it was over, which was about 9:30, just went back to routine, spent time just getting things put together and what we were going to do, what the base was going to do to recover. And I got into the Navy flight training program. They opened it up for enlisted, so it gave me an opportunity, and about a year after Pearl Harbor, I was in flight training. And I got my wings here at Corpus Christi, Naval Air Station. And I eventually got into Fighter Squadron 1 aboard the Bennington. And it was aboard her when the war ended. I got into the latter part. Never shot down any planes. I wasn't a hero. but at least I got some action against it.
So your son was telling me that you were flying the sorties into Japan right before the Enola Gay dropped the bomb.
I didn't understand it.
Your son was telling me that you were flying sorties into Japan right before they dropped the bomb.
Oh, yes, yes. Thank God he dropped those bombs, because we would have been in the invasion, and that would have been a bloody, bloody invasion. We would have lost a lot of troops, a lot of troops. Thank God Truman did what he did, despite what some people say.
Right. Well, there's always your Monday morning quarterbacks and historians that try and rewrite history.
But I've been very fortunate. This ship, the battle-scarred Lexington, she came to Corpus Christi. We won the competition with other cities, including Pensacola. And she has, I have been working with her from day one. And the ship is she's still on the firing line as far as I'm concerned, because we've got volunteers who love the ship, love our country. We work together with them and the staff and volunteers.
We've seen group after group come by, and it's so important that people get an opportunity to see this. It's a piece of history.
It is. And of course, I've been in the Pearl Harbor exhibit, and one of my subjects is getting involved. Our motto, when the organization still existed, was keep America alert, and I've been trying my best to do that. And I can tell you there are hundreds and hundreds of moms and dads and grandparents who are willing to get involved.
That's awesome.
But they've got to be encouraged more and more to work, to come together. We can do it. I'm convinced we can do it.
That's so awesome.
But again, this has been just a totally unexpected experience of being aboard this ship. That was the same ship that I flew off of, the sister ships. It's like coming aboard the Bennington, coming aboard the old Lex. That's about it. I continue to encourage Americans to get involved. It's our country, your country, my country. We've got to stay involved and not assume that somebody's going to take good care of us.
You're exactly right.
And
well, we, as Texans and as Americans, we all owe you a deep sense of gratitude.
well, I retired in Texas, so I'm a red, white, and blue Texan.
Well, we're glad you are, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very much appreciate it, sir.
Okay. I hope it's all right.